in honor of this event today, I used my database. We have about 5,000 people on our mailing list. And I sent out an email and I said, anyone who volunteers with the rescue, could you please answer this survey for me? And I just posted a few questions about the current organization they work with and the ideal organization they would like to work with. And this is some of the feedback I got. So one of the first questions was, how appreciated does your volunteer supervisor make you feel? And the really promising thing about this is we're at about 60% feel appreciated, which that makes me feel great. I'm glad to hear that because I've heard a lot from people who say, I don't feel appreciated, I don't feel like I'm part of the organization. Unfortunately, about 40% still don't feel appreciated. Let's go to the next. So in what ways does your volunteer supervisor remind you that you're appreciated? Overwhelmingly by thank you emails, which is great. A thank you note means a little bit more though, doesn't it? Don't you feel a little more thanked when you receive a note than an email? Because someone actually had to sit down and write it. Yeah, so nobody was doing thank you cards, which by the way, Happy Tales books, we have some great breed-specific note cards you could use. I'm just kidding. Really though, thank you cards mean a lot to people. It's nice to receive something. Thank you phone calls, also great when someone actually picks up the phone these days in this technology era and makes a phone call to you to say thank you. Especially one that's thank you, and there's no but or and. Thank you for your help, and will you take another dog tonight? We need someone at midnight? Thanks. It's not really a real thank you unless it doesn't have strings attached, right? That's the big part of this. I love this one that 22% responded, I just know. Come on. And then 18% said, nobody thanks me. Next slide. How meaningful is the volunteer work you do for this organization? Overwhelmingly, people feel that the work they do is meaningful. That's great. Next slide. So mark the sentence that best describes why you volunteer. This is really interesting. So most people, 32% said, because I feel like I'm making a difference. So take that. That seems to be the #1 thing. I feel like I'm making a difference. How can you remind your volunteers that they're making a difference, right? That's what people want to hear. It's not that people want to hear, thank you, you're so great, you're wonderful, you're so special. It's not that. Thank you for making a difference in these dogs' lives. Write it from the dog. Thank you for changing my life. That's why we're doing this, right? Additionally on here, people like to be a part of something greater than themselves. This one I always say, you know, if I don't help, who will? It's so true, right? If you don't help, who will? Somebody has to start the movement. Do volunteer, this is still with the current organization. So do the volunteer supervisors regularly make you feel included, like you're an important part of the rescue? And this was feedback I received from a lot of people who had volunteered and were disgruntled and said, you know, I just don't feel like I'm included. And I get that too, even sometimes with the organization I work with for as long as I've been fostering and things. Sometimes I just don't feel included. Nobody asks me or invites me to try something or to help or something. Even it's just being invited to help. Do you want my help? Maybe they don't want my help. I get it. But the nice thing here is a lot of people do feel included. We still do have, 35–40% that don't feel included. So, how likely are you going to continue volunteering? This was a good one. A lot of people feel like they're going to continue volunteering. So, what's interesting about this slide is that even though some of these people feel like they're not really appreciated, they're still going to continue volunteering. That doesn't mean it's okay to ignore the issue, that it is important to recognize volunteers. So let's talk about the ideal organization. One of the things that I brought up was training, and I was surprised actually at how important people thought training was, because I know I've never received any volunteer training. 2 or 3 years into volunteering, I did receive a packet. 2 or 3 years later. We all have to start somewhere, right? I mean, the organization is always growing, and that's great. If you don't already have a volunteer kit, make one. I think in the best practices manual, we do have one for fosters. But it's really important. I mean, I don't know what to feed these dogs. I don't know how much food they should get, you know, especially St. Bernard rescue, for example. People need to know how much they need to feed a St. Bernard, or you might end up getting it back from the foster home and they should eat it, you know? That would be in my house, yeah, or fat. In my house, if I got a St. Bernard, he'd be real skinny in a few weeks because I'm just feeding a half a cup of food.
Well,
so,
don't let that last very long.
Yeah, they probably start eating my arm. Exactly. But a lot of people feel that volunteer training is extremely important. Even more so, beyond just giving people skills and knowledge, making them feel included, right? We're back to that again. By providing training to people, you can make them feel included. Rescue's hard work can sometimes be emotionally and physically challenging. How important is it to receive recognition for your efforts? And this was independent of the organization they're in. How important did they feel like it was? 66% said it was very important, either very important or extremely important. And again, I mean, it doesn't have to be showering people with flowers. It's just making that phone call, saying thank you without strings attached. Next slide. And this is a really good one too. I thought, what are the most important qualities of a good volunteer supervisor? So what should you be looking for in a person that you're going to be putting into that outward-facing role? Most importantly was that volunteer supervisor is available for questions, whenever necessary. So I know I've called my volunteer supervisor at 3 in the morning and she has answered the phone and it was desperate, I needed her. And I know I've called her at 10 at night and it wasn't desperate and I was being a jerk. So, you know, I mean, it is important to set boundaries, but at the same time, if there's an emergency, a foster parent needs to be able to contact someone. And if that person's not available, that person who had the question isn't going to foster for very long. Is open to receiving constructive feedback. Gosh, that can really hurt sometimes, can't it? When someone wants to give you feedback that's not what you wanted to hear. I know, it hurts me. I hate hearing it. I get mad. And then an hour later, I'm like, oh crap. They're so right. So, you know, making sure the person in the role of the volunteer supervisor is open to receiving feedback and can take it and will consider it and not just get mad about it. And making people feel included, we're back to that again. That, again, was important for a person to enjoy their volunteer experience. Other ones, ensures volunteers have adequate training, giving volunteers responsibility. It's funny, people like, I don't want constructive feedback, but I want to give feedback. So I guess we have to be gentle with what we say to our volunteers. So just some of the specific points people pointed out. Several quit and never wanted to try to help another organization again, and that hurt the dogs. And that's so true, right? If we have volunteers leaving our organization and they had such a bad experience, that's going to hurt the dogs. I think that we must remember that volunteers are special, and without them, the saving of lives can't take place. We each have our own personal limit of what we can handle. The more volunteers, the more lives we can save. And I also think the Stanley video, Just One Dog, has anyone ever seen that video? I just posted it on Facebook the other day. Have a box of tissues.
Yes.
Is that the one at Christmas time?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
Christmas
phenomenal.
one. I recommend watching. When you forget why you're doing this, watch the video,
Yeah.
but have a box of tissues.
Oh,
So she thinks that all volunteers should watch the Stanley video. It's about a person who went in to pull a Cocker Spaniel, but saw a very sick Shar-Pei Bulldog-looking guy, and yeah, swollen eyes and mange, and that dog definitely would have been euthanized that night. And they pulled the dog and rehabilitated it. You know the story, but
It's a phenomenon.
and the Cocker got a good family too. Okay. I foster kittens and help with PR by writing short stories about cats who have been at the shelter for more than a year, as well as designing posters and signs to promote responsible pet ownership. I'm sure some of your volunteers are graphic designers, you know, I mean, this is another one where a lot of rescues don't specifically ask someone if they have this skill. Sometimes they go out and pay for it or whatever. You probably have someone, or put it out there online to your groups. Do you know anyone who can help with this? So this person said that I love the people, they're always so appreciative and have never forgotten to thank me for helping out. A little thank you goes a long way. Just to feel in the loop and know what's going on, I can't emphasize that one enough. I definitely have that personal feeling. What I like about the organization I work with is she regularly publishes statistics in our newsletter about how many lives we've saved, what the cost has been, what, you know, how much we've taken in. We're very transparent. I love that. I feel like I'm part of an organization I can believe in and that I understand exactly where we're at. So it's really important to be transparent with your volunteers. And of course, the head person has so much on her plate that she can't get to everyone, although she tries. Volunteers understand that, but it's not an excuse for neglecting the niceties, you know, to say thank you. Go ahead. I like this one. Stop being like the cliques in high school. Bunch of control freaks. Just because they're in charge doesn't mean they know everything there is to know about dogs or rescue. Okay, as silly as this might sound, a lot of rescues operate this way, and a lot don't even realize they're operating this way, okay? And if you are operating this way, don't feel bad, just change it, right? think about it. And a lot of, we're so busy with our day-to-day saving dogs and all our real jobs, right? Who's got real jobs too? Okay. I'm with a lucky group today. A lot of people that are involved in rescue, especially volunteers, they have full-time jobs too, right? It's hard to step back, right? And to take a look at your organization from the outside. And it might even be worth asking a volunteer from a different organization to look at your organization from the outside and give you feedback. Or someone who's been involved in another organization. It's worth your time to consider these things.